Hey Student Success Seminar, this is your video for your Chapter 1 lecture. For any Week 1 assignment, you want to make sure that you check out the Week 1 assignment video. This is only going to cover the Chapter 1 content, just to give you a nice guide as if we were in person and talking about this chapter. So for this, I went into the Week 1 folder. I'm in the materials folder. I'm going to use mostly the textbook link, although the Chapter 1 slides are open. As you can see though, as I think I mentioned this in my welcome video, the Chapter 1 slides are a little lengthy. So I'm not going to go through all of those slides. However, I do encourage you to kind of go through here. Most of the things I'm going to talk about are in detail in this slideshow, but I want you to kind of spend your time on what is going to be most helpful to you and your particular place in your academic career. So I am going to pull up the Chapter 1. Again, I retrieved this from the Chapter 1. You can see right here, Chapter 1 textbook link takes you right to the very beginning of our chapter. And I'm going to just kind of go through here. I'm not going to read it or anything like that. I'm just going to talk about this, show you a couple resources, and then encourage you to go back and spend more time on any particular section you think you need to have more time with, or on the PowerPoint, whatever that looks like for you. All right, so Chapter 1 talks about your college experience. All the chapters in our text will start off with like a little self-assessment, and so I encourage you to just kind of take a look. You know, are you yes? Are you unsure? Are you a no? It just kind of allows you to see where you are Week 1 of the semester, and then what are your goals? What are you hoping to get as it relates to the information that is going to be found in this particular chapter? So a lot of this is just like self-reflection type work at the beginning of each chapter. Then our chapter goes into just saying like, hey, welcome to college. Like for some of you, it's your very first semester. Some of you maybe have come back after a few years. Some of you are still in high school. Regardless, this is a big decision, a big step, and there's lots of benefits to attending college. Oftentimes people think like first money, right? Because you go to college, you get a degree, you have the potential to earn more money. That's great. We all want to make sure we can support ourselves and our families. However, there's so many other benefits of attending college. You are becoming better with a lot of different life skills as well. Problem solving, critical thinking, time management, all those kind of soft skills, if you will. It helps self-confidence, it helps motivation, it helps you deal with other aspects of your life. So lots of other benefits to attending college other than like the career and the money aspect that I think sometimes are first on a lot of people's minds. And so this section talks a lot about those other benefits and some skills that you're going to need that differ from high school to college, because whether you're still in high school, whether it's been a long time since you've been in high school, there are different ways to approach college versus your high school education experience. So you want to make sure that you just have those expectations that there are going to be different things you're going to have to do and try as a college student. All right, this next section talks about knowing who you are and what are your plans. I like this section right here. I think it's helpful. I always tell my first semester students, like, think this through. How long do you think it's going to take you? Now, you are at Stark State, which is a 2-year college. Most students take 3.5 years to complete a 2-year degree, which I know the vernacular 2-year college is kind of misleading then, but that's because oftentimes you're working, you're raising families, you are having social obligations. There's a lot more going on than just school. So I just really think about how long you think you're going to be here. What does that mean in terms of every semester? How many classes are you taking? Are you taking summer classes? What's going to be challenging for you? Is it going to be a certain content area? Is it going to be raising children while going through your college experience, and then how can you overcome some obstacles? So it's really helpful to come up with a plan and to think about those things. Something else you want to think about are some values. What's important to you? And I don't care if you're 16 or you're 66, like your values are what drives you to do the things that you do. And sometimes our values do change over time. In fact, I hope they do, because what you value as a younger person may become even more or less important as you grow older. And so just kind of taking stock of your values. And this is like a little self-assessment if you are interested in doing that, just to see where you think your values lie. From there, it's going to talk to you about thinking ahead to a major and a career. Now, often students do change their majors anywhere from like 3 to 5 times in their college experience. That's not uncommon. So if you start in a major and you change your major once or twice, you're in the majority, honestly. So that's okay to totally change change your mind or start a major and think like, ooh, this isn't for me. Now, what you want to avoid is getting close to the end of your degree and then changing your major, right? It's good to change your major if you're going to do so early in your college career. That's why a lot of times you want to get those prereqs out of the way. You want to take those classes that no matter what your major is, they're going to apply and it's going to help you regardless. So this talks about, making sure that you are in a major that's a good fit for you, that aligns with all of these values that you think about, that's going to align with your interests, it's going to sustain you over a long period of time. And so there's different assessments and things like that that you can take. I do want to show you, we have a career services office on our Stark State homepage. At the very bottom, you can get into quick links and you can see we have a career services office here on campus. And so even if you've already declared your major or you're undecided, they can help you either way. There's lots of resources in here. I encourage you to take a look, and in fact, you'll have to, because there's an assignment in a few weeks that has to do with career services and career planning, that kind of thing. But I wanted to at least show you the page, the web page, in case you wanted to start clicking around and seeing some things coming up. You can see there's already stuff coming up in September as it relates to career services. Here's a lot of the contact information over here. So knowing about different, are you ready for a career, knowing about different career services resources, all of that can be very helpful to you. Also, as a student, you want to make sure that you are thinking about your past educational experiences, both positive and negative. Hopefully you can all think about each of those things, right? Because we want to build on the positive and we want to learn from the negative. Some other things you want to take in consideration is that ways that college differs from high school is like time management. Obviously, now I don't want to say obviously because some of you are like from the COVID last couple years of your high school career, right? And so online learning or more heavily online learning is more natural to you maybe. But for the most case, often for college students taking an online class, it's a newer experience if they didn't have that in high school. And so time management becomes incredibly important. Being driven, being dedicated, all of that is going to play such a huge role. And so college has all of these academic components, sure, but then it has all of these non-academic things you also have to be aware about. So time management, going to the instructor if you need help, because unfortunately, for instance, I have, I want to say around 175 students this semester between all my online classes and my face-to-face classes. So there's no way for me to personally reach out to every single one individually every time I see them falling behind. If it's a pattern, I might try to, reach out, but that's where that kind of self-direction comes. If you see you're falling behind or if you have questions, to reach out to your instructors so that you are getting the help you need. So you have to kind of be your advocate as well. So you want to make sure that you are just taking a look at this list, make sure that you're prepared for all of these. This talks about who you are as a student, making sure that you are working on your motivation. It's really easy at the beginning of the semester to be motivated because it's exciting, it's new. However, a few weeks in, you might start to kind of lose some of that motivation. So just thinking about why am I here? What is it that I'm hoping to accomplish, and keeping that there. When I was working on my doctorate, this was a few years ago, I would have Post-its all over my house. And saying like, hey, don't you want the PhD, or don't you want this? I try to do the same thing with cutting out chocolate from my diet. That doesn't work. But, reminders of why you're doing what you're doing are going to help you. And then also just giving yourself some grace, because it is stressful. A lot of you are very brand new to college, or brand new to this college in particular. So just making sure that you are being flexible, but also pushing yourself. So this talks about kind of just being honest and really taking assessment of what you're bringing with you. This talks about self-management, which I already kind of alluded to, especially with online courses, and is making sure that you are, directing, being self-directed, living up to your own personal ethics, enjoying things, finding a balance, right? The next section talks about different worlds of students, especially at Stark State. We have just a ton of diversity here, which is wonderful. Excuse me. So taking a look and thinking about what kind of student would you categorize yourself as? And here's a lot of those categories, if you will. We are not all going to fit into just one category. We might go across different ones, but traditional, these will be students who are fairly fresh out of high school, you just graduated maybe in May or maybe a year ago. You're more traditional in that traditional age, but then we also have returning students where maybe this is your second or third year. Maybe you took a couple years off and you're back, so you're a returning student. Maybe you're all commuter students unless you're completely online. First generation students, we have a very large population of first generation students here at the college. This means that your parents did not attend college, and so you have kind of this unique perspective, and sometimes it's a challenging one because you're the first one. You have to figure out college know-how. So if you are a first generation college student, we do have a program here on campus called TRIO. It is specifically for a couple different groupings of students, but one of which is first generation. So it is an application program. You apply to get into this program, and it's like one-on-one support from a counselor, not like a mental health counselor or not like a tutor, but a TRIO counselor. Their job is to help you get through college, because let's face it, college is tough and you need help. We all do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I went for help when I was an undergrad and even a graduate, and then my doc work. I needed help. We all do, because people who have been there before us, they can help us get to where we want to go. So their job in TRIO is to just help you navigate different ways to approach your classes, approach your instructors, approach your major to get you to graduation. So I wanted to make you aware of that program. If you want to know more about them, there's their email address, there's their phone number and location on campus, or send me an email. I am very familiar with the program. I can send you some more information as well. We have a lot of international students at Stark State. We also have a lot of students with different abilities. So this is where if you need, and I talked about this in the welcome video, but disability support services, if you have like an IEP or a 504 in school and you need a little bit of academic assistance, this is the office that you would look to for that help. We also have a lot of you are working full-time, part-time. We're going to talk about like that time management piece in this course as well. Students with families, some of you have little ones at home, or maybe not so little ones. I always like when students are saying, yeah, my student just started as a college freshman and we're going to school together. I think those are really neat stories as well. Here is profiles of a successful student. I think the word successful is very subjective because success can mean different things to different people. For some people, it's all A's. For some people, it's passing classes, whether that's an A, B, C, whatever it might look like. For others, it's, again, we all define our own profile of what success means. But I think we can all agree that we want to do our best. And so this is a list of the places where you'll find out how to do your best, you know, being organized, preparing for tests, reading to learn. So all of this is linked here. And that's what this whole textbook and this whole course is going to talk to you about, is ways that you can reach your success. Part of that is knowing how you learn. So knowing about yourself as a learner. And so this section, I encourage, no matter what part of the process you're in as a college student, this section I think is helpful. Just knowing that the different steps in learning, if you will, you want to prepare to learn. You want to then absorb the information, you want to capture it somehow, and you want to review it. So this is going to go into detail about each of those. So being prepared hopefully means you've read your syllabus, you've read your materials ahead of class, you arrive early, you have everything you need, you ask questions, you engage. So this is going to kind of outline what that looks like, being prepared to learn. And then you're going to absorb the information. So you're going to be thinking about this information. You're going to listen, reflect on it, what it means to you, and then you're going to capture it. You're going to take notes. Even if you think you have a good memory, sometimes jotting just a few things down. You don't have to be a huge note taker, but even just jotting a few things down and going back and looking at it, which leads into the review section, right? So looking at your notes, maybe listening to a recording if you took a recording of a class, and making sure that you spend time with the material. You also should know your learning style. It's important to know, you know, every teacher has their own teaching style, which sometimes mesh or don't mesh with your learning style, but just knowing the best way you take in information, because we all have learning preferences. So this talks about the learning preferences. It goes into a lot of detail about all of that, but I'm going to encourage you to go to the VARC learning. This is not required, but it's just maybe helpful for you, varc-learn.com, and you'll scroll down to the green, what is your learning preference? And we're going to close that ad. And then you're going to scroll and you see that there are a series of questions, and in each one, try to click one thing you would do in that situation, no more than two. Okay, so whatever you would do in like each of these scenarios, all the way down to where it says okay, and it's going to give you your results. It's going to tell you what kind of learner you are. Now, once you get your results, let me pull that up, you're going to get, again, what kind of learner you are, and let's just say you're a visual learner. It's going to give you what it means to be a visual learner, what you can do, like what you prefer, how to take in information, how to present it to others, what to do in the classroom setting, in the workplace setting. So even if you've taken a survey before and you can't quite remember some strategies, under this drop down here, it tells you like all these different strategies. But I encourage you to take it if you don't know your learning preference, because it can be helpful. Reading is a big part of the college experience. There's going to be a chapter dedicating to reading skills, so we'll talk about it more in depth. But somewhere, the College Reading and Learning Association said somewhere up to like 80% of what we learn in college is done through reading, which makes a lot of sense because you're reading in class, you're reading out of class, you're constantly getting kind of sometimes inundated with reading material. And so these are some tips on how to make sure you're being successful with your reading. You know, highlighting, taking good notes, do the reading, you know, make sure that you are, if you're not necessarily like a read-write person, put it into information that makes sense to you. Maybe you're a visual person, or maybe you're a kinesthetic person. You know, how can you copy that over to your learning style to make more sense for you? Listening is also important, not just passive listening, but active listening. And so this section talks about some listening skills. There's also a chapter in our textbook that focuses more on listening skills. So you'll see that again. This kind of just gives you an overview and some tips on how to be a better listener in like a lecture type classroom. Seeing, that visual learner, how to make sure that you are capitalizing on that visual component, you know, putting things in color code and diagrams and PowerPoints, things that are going to help you. And then if you're a hands-on learner, how can you engage all of your senses? How can you take something that is text-based and make it more hands-on or interactive? And then the emotional side of learning, their interest plays a huge role. If you're not interested in something, the odds of you learning it do go down. And so how can you make a connection? How can you make it meaningful? How can you really try to amp up, even if you gotta fake it to make it, when it comes to being interested in material? And then just making sure that you are aware that, again, just like you have a learning style, your teacher has a teaching style, and sometimes you have to like just adapt a little bit. This next section talks about what is college. So at Stark State, we have mostly small classes. Face-to-face classes, you might have 20 students. Some of the classes that I teach have less than that. And so it's kind of nice to be in that smaller environment. There's a lot of information about courses, electives. So you're all going to have required courses. You're going to have electives. You might have a list saying, hey, you have to take 3 electives out of this list of 5. You know, knowing what your major is, how many credits you have to take. I do encourage students to go to the Stark State homepage under academics and find their career community. Let's say you're in the health field, so you go to the health career community and you scroll down and you lots of information about health in general, but then you scroll down and you find your specific major. Let's say you're a physical therapy assistant major. Here's your page here. So here's specific information about your major. You can see what kind of courses you have to take, how many credits it's going to be. And again, you'll see all this in a future class or recording session. So I will bring all of that up again. Knowing online courses, again, we are in a fully online class, meaning we do not meet on Zoom or face-to-face or anything, and some tips on how to make sure you are doing well with your online classes. One of the things I tell my online students is set a day and time, just like you would if you were going to class face-to-face. You know, so every Tuesday at 10 o'clock, you sit down to work on your online class. You know, set reminders, communicate with your instructor, email some students, form like a check-in group, whatever is going to help you. Class attendance, making sure you're aware of the policies of different classes. Academic honesty, we'll talk about this as well, you know, like plagiarism, things of that nature will come up throughout the course. And be aware of the different college resources. Again, I know I keep referring to this page. I just want you guys to know as much as you can. It's going to be helpful. If you go to the homepage and go to info for current students, here are all these different resources we have on campus, and guess what? They're free because you've already paid for them. If you've already paid tuition, if you are like not a college credit plus student, you've already paid for these resources, so utilize them. Go to the digital library, go to the writing center, go to the testing center, you know, use the help desk, all of these things to make sure that you are getting the most out of your experience as possible. And I will try to highlight several of these as we go throughout the semester as well. So knowing about those different resources are really helpful. And I'm a resource. You know, if you have a question, you can reach out to me as well, and I can point you in the right direction if it's not necessarily my specific area. And then finally, the last section talks about, you know, like success and failure. Again, knowing what success means for you. And then if you feel like you failed, how can you learn from that? How can you make it better? How can you go forward? Do grades matter? Again, that just depends on you. Depends on if you're in a program that you have to have a certain GPA. It depends on if you have financial aid requirements. All those different things are going to play a role in, you know, your grade outlook. Okay? And this talks a little bit about calculating your GPA if you're interested in finding out more about that. And then just in general, succeeding in your first year. There's a lot of research that will support the fact that these type of classes in themselves help students succeed because you're getting a lot of tips up front. All right, so I encourage you on your own to take a more thorough look at Chapter 1 content. Feel free to take a look through the Chapter 1 slides if you need to spend any more particular time. You can kind of, again, see how these go into detail with a lot of the things we just talked about. But feel free to spend more time on anything that makes sense to you, and come back and watch your video that will contain the assignments that you'll complete for week 1. Bye.